The impacts of logging intensity and fire frequency on the abundance of animals in the Helidon Hills region. This study was conducted on 5 properties in the Helidon Hills in order to identify if there was any correlation between the abundance of animals in the area and logging intensity or fire frequency whose applications varied across the properties. All properties were in the same area and thus had similar woodland habitat structures, which allowed for comparison of these 2 management factors. Each of these factors had 2 levels, being either logged or unlogged and having a low or high fire frequency. Each factor has been applied to each property based on the management of the owner and is shown in this table. Each property was sampled in a similar manner and using the same techniques, however, transect layout and data collection was conducted by a different group on each property. The sampling methods used were Elliott traps, cage traps, pitfall traps and passive saw plots. 8 Elliott trap lines with 10 traps in each were set on each property. 1 cage trap was set in the middle of each of these transects in order to trap any larger animals which may interfere with the Elliott traps. 3 pitfall transects with 5 traps in each were also used to trap smaller animals. The final sampling technique used was passive saw plots, which were created along the main access tracks within or near each property. An example of the layout of the trap lines is shown here on the Burkett property. The data collected was then collated into the number of animals caught per 100 trap nights for each sampling technique. These results were then statistically analysed versus logging intensity and fire frequency using one-way ANOVA to determine if either significantly impacted the number of animals captured on each property. The final results found only the number of possums per 100 trap nights to be significantly impacted by fire frequency with a p-value of 0.049. All other tests returned insignificant results. The confidence intervals were set at 95% and, as is seen in each graph, were very large, which is a result of such a small sample size and lack of data. This study is unlikely to be a true representative of the region as the data was too sparse to allow for any comprehensive analysis. The sparsity of data was primarily the result of the study only being conducted over 3 nights and not being repeated, which are both errors in study design. As well as this, each property was sampled by different people with little correspondence about the method of placing transects, which impacted the consistency of data collection. Although there was no conclusive evidence towards the impacts of logging and fire on the abundance of animals on these properties, a similar approach with further developments in study design, a longer time period, and more repetition to improve accuracy would allow for conclusions to be made about the impacts of these commonly used management strategies on animals.